In this video, we will see how to calculate the realized return and the expected return of a portfolio. The return of a portfolio is the weighted average of the return on each asset or each investment in a portfolio. So the W's that you see in this formula are the weights of the assets in the portfolio. To calculate the weight for each asset, we need to divide the value of investment by the total value of the portfolio. And remember that the weights of all investments in a portfolio should add up to 1. So let's say we have 3 investments in a portfolio. So W1 plus W2 plus W3 should add up to 1. So the weights on the 3 different assets that we have in a portfolio should add up to 1. So now let's work on an example. Suppose you buy 200 shares of AT&T at $25 per share and 300 shares of ExxonMobil at $36 per share. If AT&T stocks goes up to $29.70 per share and ExxonMobil stocks fall to $32 per share and neither pay dividends, what is the new value of the portfolio? What return did the portfolio earn? So to solve this example, first we need to calculate the total value of the portfolio and then the weights of each asset. Okay. So let's denote the return on AT&T as R1 and the return on ExxonMobil as R2. And then the W1 and W2 will be the weights of AT&T and ExxonMobil respectively. So to calculate the weight of AT&T, I'm going to multiply the number of shares of AT&T by its stock price, which was 25, the purchasing price. And also, I'm going to divide this value of AT&T by the total value of the portfolio, which is the summation of the AT&T stocks value plus ExxonMobil stocks value. So if you do that, you get 0.3165 or 31.65%. To calculate the weight for ExxonMobil, since W1 and W2 should sum up to 1, I can just subtract W1 from 1 to get 68.35%. Okay. Now I will be able to calculate the return on the portfolio. But before that, I need to calculate the return on each individual asset. So for AT&T, the stock price increased to 29.7. So the return on AT&T is 18.8%. And remember that none of these stocks paid any dividend during the day. So their returns going to be equal to their capital gain or capital loss. For ExxonMobil, the stock price fall to $32. So the return on the ExxonMobil is minus 11.1%. And by using the portfolio return formula, we get 1%, negative 1%, 0.64. Okay, so the return, the portfolio return, is the weighted average return of AT&T and ExxonMobil. And once we calculate these, we get negative 0.64% as the portfolio return. Okay? So, if we want to calculate the expected return of a portfolio, it will be very similar to the realized return of a portfolio. So the expected return of a portfolio is also the weighted average of the expected returns of the investment within it. And the weights corresponds to the portfolio weights. So to calculate this W1 or W2, we're going to take the same approach as we did in the previous example. So here is another example for calculating the expected return of a portfolio. Suppose you invest $20,000 in Citigroup stock and $80,000 in General Electric stock. You expect a return of 18% for Citigroup and 14% for GE. What is the expected return for your portfolio? So first of all, W1 would be equal to 20,000 divided by 1,000, which is the total value of our portfolio. So the weight on Citigroup is 20% and the weight on GE is 80%. To calculate the expected return of portfolio, I'm going to multiply these weights by their corresponding returns. By doing that, I would get 14.8% return as the expected return of our portfolio.